Good evening, and welcome to our parent chat tonight. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight, and thanks for all the questions that were submitted ahead of time. That being said, if you've got clarifying questions or other questions that come to mind, definitely drop those in the chat. We've got Nancy in there, Abby in there, and I think Fred joining us as well to help and answer questions that are coming in through the chat. So keep those coming. Definitely a couple different themes that popped out in the questions that we'll get to, but I guess in case this is your first parent chat, we should probably introduce ourselves first so you know who you're talking to. My name's Chad Eichhoff. I serve as Director of Admissions here at NAU. I'm joined by my colleague Annika. If you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks Chad. My name is Annika Olson and I serve as the Vice President for Enrollment Management here at Northern Arizona University. I also have a new first-year student starting college this August. So right alongside many of you parents, this may be your first or last or somewhere in between student you're sending off to school. And certainly I am not the only one that can empathize with you, because joining us is also our colleague from Residence Life and Housing. Alicia?
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Alicia Stewart-Boytek. I serve as Associate Vice President in Campus Operations and work with Housing and Residence Life and serving your students that way, our residential students. And yes, as Annika mentioned, I have a recent college graduate and a recent freshman in college. So definitely can empathize and know what you're going through. So yeah, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you both, and thank you parents for joining. A couple of kind of the bigger topics that came through in the questions ahead of time were around class schedules and advising. Certainly a lot of financial type questions, so we're gonna dive deep into that, and Annika's gonna even jump on the web pages and show us some stuff. Alicia's always here to talk move-in and all things housing. And then kind of some odds and ends, other questions that we'll get into as well too, but certainly the themes around advising and class schedules, and then finances are some ones we want to click into here first. So a question came in kind of, when is the latest a student should be finalizing their schedule and deciding on that? Kind of the good advice would be they should try to be full-time by the time tuition's due. August 14th is the tuition due date, and look into make sure that they've done that prior to that time. But you technically a student could add or drop classes all the way up through September 1st. There's an add drop deadline that's posted each academic year on the calendar. And students could add or drop at that time. That being said, the good advice would be to get your schedule locked down prior to that, so that you could be buying textbooks, showing up to that first day of class, and all of that. And Annika's reminding me actually on the side on chat, August 16th is the time that tuition's due, but disbursement is August 14th. So that's kind of the advice around the timing of that. Now, certainly there are, we had some questions coming around wait list and what that looks like in the class building process, or the schedule building process. And that is a common occurrence, to have the possibility that your student may be on the wait list for some courses. And wait lists really allow us as a university to see where there's the demand and then adjust accordingly from there. And advisors are great resources to help your student talk through whether it makes sense to add a course section that exists already and has capacity, or to stay on a wait list in order to be added into a specific class or a specific section of the class. But I know we're continually adding more sections of classes. One of our common math courses just added 200 seats just the other day. So continuing to build those out and give that capacity for the students to get that full-time schedule. So again, that advisor is your resource for the student to reach out to and be having those conversations. Had a few different questions come in around kind of how they know what classes need to be taken. Another question was, do all majors require a foreign language? And really all of those questions can be answered by looking at a degree progression plan. And every single major that your student could choose has a degree progression plan that's published out there. NAU.edu/progression plan is going to take you there. You can get there by going through the catalog as well. And with that, then you'll see kind of the courses that the student needs to take throughout the 4 years to finish up that program. So that's where I would point students, point parents, if you're trying to get a sense of what courses are taken for each program. And on that specific question that had come in ahead of time around if a foreign language is required, for our BAs, our Bachelors of Arts, those all do require languages, a foreign language be taken. Some of the other degrees will as well. And that's kind of where that degree progression plan comes in to determine if that is a requirement or not for your student's given major. So talking through, again, kind of the steps to get that class schedule, to get that advising appointment. First of all, if I had one link to point your student to around the course schedule piece and the advising piece would be our webpage for our Gateway Student Success Center, which does all our first year advising. NAU.edu/gateway is that webpage. And there's going to be 3 kind of parts that are on that website, and you'll see links to those, I believe, on the right side of the webpage. Priority enrollment is going to be the first piece. If your student has not yet completed that, they'll want to do that. And that kind of begins the communication with the academic advisor and will allow them to start building a schedule off of that. The next step then is they're going to want you to sign up, the student to sign up for either a Zoom group appointment or to go through the online modules on their own time. And that kind of gives an overview of the advising experience of the class schedule experience. So that would be the second step. And then once your student has done that, so priority enrollment and went through either the module or attended one of those group sessions, then they can sign up for that one-on-one virtual appointment with their academic advisor. And they'll, no matter if they've got from the priority enrollment process, a full schedule built out or just the beginning of a schedule built out, they can have that conversation with their academic advisor to get the ball rolling on finalizing that schedule. If you have kind of your student has general advising type questions or maybe more specific questions than what I've answered to, the Gateway email address for the advising center would be the one I would direct you to. gateway@nau.edu is going to be able to get started with that conversation if they've got any questions about that process I just laid out, or just general advising and class schedule type things. So I don't know, Annika, anything that you would add to that, or Alicia, or do you think that's kind of a good overview of the advising class schedule piece?
I think it's great. My incoming student also is choosing to flip around his schedule a little bit. He decided to jump on a summer school class that he was already scheduled for the fall semester. So I had to drop that class and now is waitlisted as well. And I know it can be super unnerving as a parent because I've been on him like, did you check? Did you check? So I am telling myself this as well, to be a little patient. It will work out. And as Chad said, we just added 200 more seats in a class. We're going to continue to do that on a rolling basis in the next couple of weeks. So likely to see some movement there.
Yep. And once you've had that advising conversation with once the student, I keep saying you, but this should be your student having that conversation with the advisor. They may point them to some certain classes that they know some capacity will be freeing up, and your student would have the ability to then add those classes as they become available as well, and could be keeping an eye on that after they've had that appointment. I did see someone in the chat kind of talk about, is there a progression plan for an undecided student, an exploratory student? I think what I would recommend there is that's a great opportunity for your students to talk to that academic advisor, and they're really versed in helping students kind of decide what they could try out to get a sense of what they may want to go. Maybe they've got some kind of general idea of where they want to go and could dabble in a couple classes that could be recommended by their academic advisor. And certainly they would be advising them to take courses that are going to count towards general prereqs and help them to finish in 4 years as they're an exploratory student. I know we've got a colleague in our office here. She changed majors 5 times and still finished in 4 years. So certainly doable, and they're going to get you off on the right foot to make sure you're taking the right classes for that. I did realize I missed one question kind of on the advising front, and that was around how a student could change what major they've declared. And that is something that they actually can do themselves in the student center of their LUI account. It's kind of off to the left side. There should be a drop down there for changing their major. They can only change their major once a day. So if your student wakes up and changes their mind later in the day, it's only one time they could change it in there. And if a student wants to double major and do 2 different majors, they're going to have to reach out to their advisor to do that particular thing. But otherwise, they should be able to self-change their major within their LUI account. So I mentioned kind of the next big overarching topic we want to make sure we hit on is the financial side. And there was a wide range of questions that came in, and I'm just going to throw it over to Annika to start talking through some of those, and I'll give you the ability to share screen if you'd like to as well.
Thank you. And I'll also show you where that drop down is because I'm going to show you a screen in our Student Service Center and show you, there we go, show you where that is. So Chad mentioned that's in there on the left-hand side, right here in your student's LUI account. In the LUI account is where your student does their university business, from accepting financial aid to completing master promissory notes if they have loans. One of the questions was, do they need to do that if they have a loan but they're not taking it? No, they don't need to do that. But in this drop-down box right here, this is not a live LUI. You can drop down and your student would see the change major. They can also see their unofficial transcripts, their transfer credit report, and a lot of other information if they need it. But this is where a student would come to do all of their university business. So this student has no outstanding charges at this time. You can see they do have a couple holds. Another one of the questions was, how do I know if my student needs to clear their citizenship verification for Prop 300? If this student needed to do that, it would show here in the holds. Once that paperwork has been processed and hits the system, it will not show up in a student's hold or their to-do list. So a couple different things. Hold prevents a student from doing business. So they need to clear it. In the to-do list, if this is always cleaned up, then there should be no holds. So this is just a quick look. So your student can add you as an authorized user as well to do some business on their behalf, most specifically, see their grades, see their class schedule, and view their financial information. Those are usually the big 3 that parents like to see. And another one of the questions, as I'm going back from my questions, if you should not be concerned yet if you see charges and you don't see the WUI tuition rate on there or your merit scholarship, because as Chad mentioned, tuition, the first due date is August 16th. And we'll send all the financial aid to your student's account 2 days before that on August 14th. But that doesn't really make everyone feel totally at ease. So I'm going to pull up our financial aid website. Now, there is a Financing Your Education webinar tomorrow. We also have a number that have already happened that have been recorded. So if you can't join at the time tomorrow, then you can watch one of the pre-recorded. But here's a sneak peek. on the scholarships and financial aid website, if you scroll down, you can see budget cost of attendance worksheet. You can go into this worksheet. So if I click here, it'll come up with a worksheet. It shows what tuition and fees are, and then what your housing option is, what your meal plans option, and then we estimate for books and supplies, personal and transportation, what some additional expenses, other costs to consider. Like I told my student, like those are types of expenses, like we want you to buy toothpaste and deodorant still, for example, and that's what this personal would be. So then you look on that Louis account. Let me go back here. It's where it says view financial aid. Then you can go back to that worksheet and put in your financial aid. And then tuition and mandatory fees, all of these are given to you, what you think your personal expenses will be. And then you do that total cost minus the aid and resource, and then you'll have your remaining amount owed. Remember, we do the whole academic year, fall and spring. So you're going to take that amount, cut it in half, and you'll have a pretty close estimate on what your costs will be for the fall. So again, I'm gonna tread back out here. Budget and cost of attendance worksheet, and I believe my friends in the chat, Abby, Nancy, and Fred, have that website that they either have already posted or will post now. And they also, if you didn't catch anything what I just said, we have a short video that shows you how to complete that they're going to put in the chat as well. It's on Vimeo. And so you can workshop that with yourself. If you have your financial aid award letter, if keep everything that we've sent you, then you can use that to fill out that budget worksheet as well. So now I'm going to go back to that Louis. It also is interview financial aid. So the next is like, okay, Annika, I want to see like really what is in that account. So you can go to account inquiry. Your student, you want to encourage them to do direct deposit because tuition's due the 16th. We release financial aid a couple days before that. And if they have a refund coming to them, they would get that in their direct deposit account. So for many students, that might mean book money. Our bookstore here on campus takes all normal forms of payment. And someone asked about Jack's Debit Express. And what that is it's a declining balance on the student's ID card that acts as a debit card at locations around Flagstaff for food mostly, but also on campus at the campus bookstore as well. So a student could take their refunded financial aid if there's enough there to cover it, or if you've paid to make sure they have book coverage, and they can apply that to their Jack's Debit Express account. It used to be students needed to put money on that to do laundry on campus, but Alicia and team are including laundry in your rent payment, so they won't need to do that anymore. So that's awesome. We've had lots of great feedback from that. So I've covered that. I'm just checking. Tuition can be broken down into different payment plans, and you see enroll in payment plan. And so if you know that you're going to pay tuition over the course of the semester, then you can enroll in a payment plan, and then you have like a monthly bills. So that is also something you can do there. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen. And I covered dispersal, payment for books each semester. There's a deferred payment plan. The Louis account is their business account. What are different loans, grants, and scholarships available? That also can be found on that financial aid website that's in the chat. We have a number of scholarships that are offered to students at the time of admission based on their academic record when they apply. And so we've offered many of those. We've offered all of those already. A number of scholarships students can apply for throughout the year, usually late fall into January and February. We have a number of scholarships, our private donor scholarships or additional college scholarships. So if I'm a business major, I would apply in the Franke College of Business for additional scholarships. And all of that can be done online by your student and can be additive to what they're already receiving. All of them have different requirements as well. I know there was one more I haven't gotten to too. I'm looking. Yeah, so any scholarships or loans, I will say something about loans. Many parents and students are like, well, I'm not going to take a loan. I always recommend, and I recommended this for my student as well, is that if you're offered a loan, you can always take it and do the entrance counseling the federal government has you do, and you can always not take it or take a lower amount. So if you're offered a $2,000 scholarship for the course of the year, I often share and am experiencing now, there's often what I like to call startup costs. So if your student doesn't have a computer and they're going to want one, if they need to purchase bedding, if they don't have it, those types of things I always call startup costs, that regardless of where they're living or what major they are, they might need some items that really you would pay for kind of hopefully once if they treat their laptop well and wouldn't need to do again. And that's where the loans can be at a much lower interest rate if your student's not or you're not saving money to do some of those things. So I always recommend taking it, and if they get it refunded to them in that refund process, they can always pay it back with no interest in the first like 7 or 10 days. So just be aware of that as well. Chad, did I cover all my questions about financial aid?
I may have missed it. But did you talk about if they've had a changed financial situation?
I didn't. Thank you. I'm going back to my magic website. I'm going to go back to share real quick. Nope, not chat. Wrong Zoom button. If you have had a change of, we know this last 15 months with COVID, there's been lots of job changes, layoffs, furloughs, all of that. So if you have had a change, you want to go to the forms section and you can appeal how much the federal government says from the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, how much each family can contribute to their education, to their students' education. Lots of different things taken into account. It's a federal government calculation that they then, with your students' permission, they say, yes, please send that information to NAU. And that's how we build your financial aid package. But the crazy thing is, for the fall 21 academic year, we're looking at the tax year of 2019. Well, that was pre-COVID and things can look a lot different. So if you look at that from the federal government and be like, no, that was my salary then, but it's not my salary now, you can do a contribution appeal and get that taken care of. And we'll look at all of your information again and make any additional adjustments from there. If you're a parent that was offered a Parent Plus loan and know that your circumstances are such that you won't, your credit, because that Parent Plus loan, you go in and apply for it separately through that student aid website that you're probably familiar with. And if you get denied that Plus loan, then we look at your student and can offer them some different pieces of aid as well. So I think that was the question that was outstanding, Chad.
Yep, I think that covered it. Let's get Alicia involved here. And the first question, whenever I've got you on any of these things, I ask, is there still housing available on campus?
Yes, thanks. So yeah, if you are still deciding about your housing situation or your college situation, yes, we will continue to guarantee freshman housing. So, and for that matter, if there are any transfer students on or transfer parents, we'll guarantee housing as well for any incoming student, really. So once you accept your offer of admission and you have your enrollment deposit paid, then you'll be able to apply for housing through the housing portal. That's your step, and I'll kind of walk you through. We're just wrapping up room selection for students now at the end of this month. I can't believe it's already July tomorrow. So from this point forward, if you apply after this point, we will assign your room versus you selecting your room, but mostly due because we're having billing going out soon, but we will use our roommate matching tool and that kind of thing to assign based on space availability and what you have in your roommate questionnaire. So you can still apply. Yeah, it's not too late.
Cool. I'm going to read this question the way it came in because I absolutely love it. And I think that there's probably a lot of other parents on the chat that probably can kind of relate to this. And maybe, yeah, Alicia, and then maybe Annika, you maybe want to weigh in here too. But the parent starts by saying, sorry if this is an odd question, but this is our oldest and first college move-in experience. So I'm sure there's many parents on the chat right now that can relate to that feeling. When moving our daughter in, will she move in and then she's pretty much with her roommate and doing lumberjack experience, or do we hang out, visit, have dinner? Trying to coordinate things like what's that going to look like, and try to not make you emotional, Annika, as you think of your sending your
I have
son
some
off
recommendations.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
It's interesting that you say that because Chad has seen me get emotional about sending my firstborn off to college, which is why he said that. But Alicia, you're there.
Oh, so what I would say, well, first, kudos to you for knowing the term lumberjack experience, so that you're already a step ahead, that you actually know that that's a thing. So that's our kind of welcoming experience for students coming back to campus or arriving to campus. So definitely we encourage students to participate in the lumberjack experience and all the great things that we're planning for that week. Parent advice from personal experience and just seeing parents over the years, I just aim for a balance. So I think having the conversation ahead of time is helpful, and also being really ready to shift plans. So if you have planned and you've said, okay, we're going to maybe do dinner on these nights, and then all of a sudden that changes because your students' experience maybe shifts a little bit, or they get caught up in something else, don't take it personal. Don't take it personally. So either that might be they want to maybe spend a little bit less time with you, or maybe sometimes a little bit more time with you. So I would just go in with maybe a general loose, idea, talk through it, and then be ready to flex during that week, just to, that weekend that you're moving in, just depending on how things are going. So I would highly encourage at least having a couple touch base points, whether that's a lunch or a dinner or just maybe a walk around campus. One thing that I would recommend sometimes for students who are trying to get used to their schedules and where they're going, sometimes parents are a great, safe place to maybe tour around the building and kind of check out some of the academic buildings that they'll be going to. There's plenty of opportunities to do that with other students and as part of Lumberjack Welcome, the Lumberjack experience when you get welcomed. But I think sometimes even a pre-run, and then I think sometimes, for us parents, like it's fun to live vicariously through our students of just kind of just having a visual of like what you're going to be going from, like where's your hall, where are your academic classes, and where are the dining halls. It just helps, I think, parents have a little bit of a visual, especially now after we've been through COVID and some limitations on tours. It might be a helpful way to kind of just help kick off that. Now, that being said, I would also recommend not to hover. And this will be a great first step to allowing your student to gain some of that independence. So just keep ties. Don't hover, don't over text, don't under text. So balance, that's the key is what I would say. And Annika, are you crying yet? No.
I am not. I'm laughing because I've started this conversation with my student, and he said to me, "I think you just need to just wait and see." And I was like, "Well, I'm not really a wait and see person." So we're trying to figure out our cadence.
Yeah, I know Shannon Clark, our director of parent family services, and I think you met her at a previous one of these, and she always would tell the story when she was in front of parents at an orientation or other type setting, that one of her children was all about doing all the things together, and then the other one they moved them in, and they said, "Well, see you later." So I think it kind of just depends on your student, and I think you both gave great advice there. Alicia, I'm gonna on that move in front, as we're talking move in, if you could just talk a little bit more about that whole idea around choosing a move-in date and what that looks like.
Yeah, and I'm gonna actually share my screen and go to the move-in page because I think sometimes it's helpful to have a visual of that as well. So taking up Annika's cue of sharing some screens, I think that will be helpful. Let me make sure I share this one and not some other weird screen. So this is our move-in page, and right here you'll have kind of the general calendar of move-in. So our main move-in experience runs from Thursday, August 19th through Sunday the 22nd, with classes beginning the 23rd. Again, some of the events for Lumberjack Experience will occur that weekend through the week. If you want to arrive early, we do have a couple early move-in days for $25 a night. Unless you're in the Honors College, you move in these 2 days and you do not pay that extra fee. And that's just to help us with our staggered check-in and the early move-in for honors. So that's basically the schedule. What I will say is that you don't have to wait if you're needing to make plans right now. I know we have not opened up the move-in appointments specifically yet. We do that intentionally for a reason. We try to get a little bit later in the summer to make sure, because if there's any assignment changes, the move-in appointment is attached to your room in your hall. So we try to get a little bit later in the summer. We've got everyone assigned to open those up. However, what I would say is you can still plan your trip. We're going to have more appointments than people, plenty to choose from, and they're 45-minute increments. So if you're arriving and arrive about 1 o'clock and there's not a 1 o'clock appointment, but there's a 1:45, there's plenty to do to kind of navigate campus and pick up that next appointment. So I wouldn't worry too much about the appointments. You'll have plenty available, so you don't have to wait for that appointment to make your plans, especially if you're coming from out of state and you just want to have a general date and time of your arrival, or if you need to make some flight plans, that is fine. We will, again, have plenty of appointments, so don't let that hold you up. That's probably my key thing. While I'm on here, I'll just show you some other helpful information. There's drop downs here about, again, this goes into details about scheduling your move-in appointment. We will email students and parents when that step opens up in the portal. In the meantime, you can kind of try to start to plan to pack and what to bring. And on here, this is kind of a helpful, there's a little what to bring list and a quick video to help you kind of navigate that. But if you go to the what to bring list, there's both the drop downs where you can show, here are some things that might be essential, maybe if there's room, and then definitely some things that to bring. And you can also use this handy checklist too if you wanted to actually go physically shopping, or you're on the internet kind of looking, you can use this as a little checklist. So that's to kind of help you get started, because you definitely don't need anything. I've said this before, if you've booked a U-Haul, go ahead and cancel it. You shouldn't need a U-Haul to take your stuff. You can always add more later, but just it's better to kind of start with the essentials and then add in once you get settled in with your roommate and in your space. So this is a great site to go to just to walk through the move-in plans. You can start doing a lot of things to help plan now and then get your final details a little bit later in the summer. So I will stop sharing here in a second. And if I can find the stop share, that would be great. Why I can't find the stop share is awesome.
Up near the top, I think.
That's what I'm looking for now. And now I'm singing, which is also so great because I don't have a great voice. Can you stop my sharing?
Yes, I can actually. There we go.
Thank you. Thank
Learned
you.
something new on Zoom. We've been doing a lot of Zoom in the last year, but learned something new right there.
Apparently, I'm still not skilled quite yet at that. Usually good at that, but
So one of the questions as we were kind of talking about the actual process of moving in, you said, don't bring a U-Haul. Somebody had asked, like, can we just FedEx a bunch of stuff there ahead of time? What are the thoughts around that, and can they?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So you can definitely ship things to the hall. We ask that you actually ship after move in, because if you're trying to time the arrival of boxes with your student moving in, it doesn't always, it gets a little tricky because we don't have the hall open and the desk staffed prior to students moving in. We don't staff an empty hall. So it's tricky if we don't have the full staffing there and there's not someone there to accept the packages. And so while we have some hours and we're getting prepped, we just don't want to run a situation where there's not someone there to sign for the packages. So it's safer and better to, once they're moving in or very close to moving in, have them sent then. And there's information on our website about mailing packages. So there's some that will go directly to the front desk and some that can go to the post office. But the ones that obviously from convenience going to the front desk is usually the way most students go. The other thing about sending them ahead of time is that it kind of creates a mountain of packages. That's not always the easiest to work through. So when students are there and actually actively picking them up, then it helps us kind of get those distributed as well. So that's my tip on that.
Thanks. Had a question ahead of time about if family weekend has been scheduled, and family weekend is a great time for parents, families to come visit their students. We know that at a certain point in the semester, then your students might start to feel a little more homesick and be missing family. And we do have dates scheduled. It's October 1st through 3rd are the dates for that. And they are excited about planning a fun weekend. There's not a lot of details published out there yet. The website is nau.edu/family weekend. And if you go there, you'll basically right now see the dates and that alone. But trust me, that's where more information will be published as that weekend gets planned out even further. So had a couple questions come in, and I know the survey would have went out last week, so some of the timing had to do with that and flagstaffing in the news around so some forest fires and certainly the Western United States in general. Annika, if you could talk a little bit about just kind of that preparedness piece or
Sure.
what you'd like.
Yeah, I think everywhere in the Western United States over the last couple kind of fire seasons, similar to the Southeast with hurricane season, are always kind of on the ready mode of ready, set, and go. And certainly here in Coconino County with the Raphael fire, which is now over 50% contained and no smoke in town. Whereas last week we couldn't say the same, but the emergency management team here at NAU was meeting daily to make sure at campus proper was not, was still just in the normal status. But some of our neighborhoods on the outskirts of town were on the set mode. And so that did, we know there are students that live in those neighborhoods. I live in one of those neighborhoods. And so we were preparing. One of the best pieces of advice I can offer you, especially as you're sending your student to us, and this would go for any type of emergency, would be to download and have your student download the NAU Safe app. So that would be, that's where we send and we encourage all students to opt into that. And you can be added as a parent. And so you would get an alert if there was an emergent situation on campus or near campus, or if there's some status change. You can access NAU Safe and link to it, I believe, from NAU Go if you've already downloaded the Go app. In terms of what we would do, there are a number of plans in place for all types of emergency. We do tabletop exercises regularly here on campus. And certainly Alicia and her role as overseeing thousands of students that live in our residence halls are part of that. So we do have plans if a student is an out-of-state student or is a student on campus without a car and can't evacuate themselves, we would use our campus and local resources. We have dozens of buses on campus that shuttle students to and from class. And they're used quite a bit in the snow season, as you can imagine, to find a location where we can make sure that everyone's accounted for and we could evacuate efficiently. With the Sky Dome being kind of an iconic building on campus, and in Flagstaff, that's an easy one because there's lots of access routes and it's a big facility where we could organize lots of people. But it would depend on what the emergency was. With a fire, we would certainly help and make sure our hall teams and campus teams were assisting students to safety. That has been and will remain, our primary purpose. We would not want any harm to come to any of our students. And so there are a number of plans in place for varying different things, and a number of those have been updated in light of COVID. And we were, so I would argue that we're even better prepared now than we were prior. Alicia, do you have anything to add on that?
The perspective I would just add is that actually NAU is considered within City of Flagstaff really one of the safest places to be, just because of how the campus is set up and maintained. And so we're actually looked a lot towards being one of the county resources for emergency management. So I think it's more likely than not that, if we were experiencing some emergency, it wouldn't be a lot about exiting the campus. It'd be really about being in that safe space. So that's the great thing about the campus, and we've partnered forever, with the county on any kind of emergency management, especially during fire season when the campus is less occupied. And in the past, we've housed hotshot crews, who have been attending to fires. So definitely, it's a great place to be for those emergencies. And as Annika said, very, very detailed planning process and a good cross-section collaborative group who works as part of that emergency management team on campus. A lot of great minds on that team.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just pulled up the latest info. I think 72% contained, and that number keeps going up for that Raphael fire. And just want to say thank you to firefighters too, and those crews that worked the fire, and not just that one, but throughout the Western United States. So super thankful for all the work that they all do. I'm gonna throw a question your way, Alicia, around the JAX card, which is the student ID. How will students get those? I know that's part of getting like in and out of a residence hall, dining meal plans, that type of thing. What does that look like?
Yeah, same thing. I would go to the nau.edu JAX card site. They'll have all the information on what you need. The biggest thing is submitting, getting your photo submitted. This summer you can be doing that now. So they'll continue also to provide details this summer on getting ready for your ID credentials and access to buildings. For dining in particular, I know a question came in about dining for that, when does that open and when will meal plans start? So basically your meal plan consists of meals and dining dollars. Your meals will begin on August 19th, that kind of first main move-in day. However, if you arrive earlier than that, your dining dollars are added to your account upon your first payment of that, which is kind of tied in. Annika shared the dates earlier with tuition due and your first housing payment, your first meal plan payment. And so your dining dollars that you'll have, those you can start to use that week of the 16th in any of the venues that are open. They'll kind of stage the opening of those different platforms with arrivals during the week. So you can start to use your dining dollars before the 19th, and then on the 19th on you'll start. And that first week, since it's a shortened week, you have some prorated meals on your meal plan for that. So there'll be a lot of information too in the residence halls and the dining halls about that. And then again, that NAU Go app is another great one to have because you can access the hours and locations and any special dietary needs all right there from the app. So I encourage you, if you haven't yet done that, to do that. You can do that now.
Thank you. There's a question that came in ahead of time just around mentoring, and if we assign students a mentor. And Annika, can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, so students can certainly request to be paired with a mentor through one of our numerous mentoring programs we have. If a student's joining us from out of state, if they're first generation students, some of those categories will automatically get assigned a mentor. I think part of that question was, would they encourage them to be involved in campus? And that was a question that we also got last week on the forecast from Flagstaff. And so I would also say that each of their residence halls has a full team of peer students called resident assistants, as well as a full-time residence hall director living in the building with students, and can be a great resource. I think Alicia can probably talk a little more expertly, I don't even know if that made sense, about that the RAs are there really as resources for students and often end up being very close friends with them. But also the RAs are upper class students that encourage them to connect with resources we have on campus. And Chad always likes to say the best students are the ones that ask for help before they need help. So yes, we have mentor programs, and we have RAs, and we have a team of student affairs staff that it will be hard for your students not to become involved or interact with, because we will encourage that from the moment they move in through the lumberjack experience and beyond.
Thank you. There was a question about how parents could be added to parent emails. So maybe you didn't get this email, it got forwarded to you. Chances are that the reason you're not necessarily tied to it is when your student applied, maybe they didn't list this particular email address, the particular email address you use on their application. If you would like to be added, I would just suggest that you email us at admissions@nau.edu, and we'll work through getting you added to receive those future communications. Annika, I'll throw this your way. One of the things on kind of the checklist is proof of citizenship. How do parents, families, students know that that's been processed?
So on that to-do item I showed in the Louis account, that's where that would show. If it's been processed, it'll be off that to-do list.
Awesome. And then can you also talk a little bit there about if there's a disconnect between NAU Go and Louis in terms of timing and what parents are seeing?
Yeah, the Louis function through NAU Go is a newer function for that. So we are working out some kinks, but it's also a data feed issue. So when Louis, if it's in Louis, that's our student official record. What we've created in NAU Go is a convenience for students, and in the summer we push data there less frequently, and so there just might be a gap in that data feed. So if you do something in Louis, many of our processes take 24 hours to complete in Louis, and then it would go over to Go. If there's something more specific, feel free to email that admissions email that Chad mentioned, and we'll dig in further.
And I'm seeing a flutter of parking questions in the live chat here. So just touch on that quick. August 1st is when it's going to be available for your student to purchase a parking permit. And I saw someone asked if they would need one to park at their dorm, at their residence hall. Yes, anywhere on campus, the student would need to get a parking pass for that. And we do, for most of our parking areas, it's by their license plate. So they would actually pay for the permit, and then their license plate actually kind of is their ID or their permit on campus. That's why we can wait until August 1st for them to get in there and purchase those and still have that ready to go for the student. I think I hit most of the themes. One that I've seen in the chat, and then also I know came in ahead of time, was around visiting campus. So just want to make sure I hit on that at least. Our Welcome Center continues to be open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And we've got walk-ins coming, sitting down, getting their questions answered, helping people out with self-guided tours as well. We have opened up some campus visit registration opportunities. nau.edu/visit. They tend to be filling up quick as we're putting those out there for folks, but I know in August we've got some availability, and we're also looking for some ways to create some greater capacity to get some students on campus that I know it would be helpful for them to see campus maybe before they come here in the fall. That being said, like I said, our office is open. We've got self-guided tours. We've got podcasts available that folks can listen to while they go around campus. Every day I see our student ambassadors out there at the front desk connecting with students too to help them feel comfortable with that transition. So certainly come up to campus. We're open. We're welcoming you to come through. Just a limited capacity on the official tour piece, but we're working to accommodate as many families as we can with that experience. Anything else or any other topics I missed, Annika or Alicia?
I think from the pre-submitted questions, I think we've hit them all. I don't know if there's any more in chat, but we do have next week another episode of Forecast from Flagstaff, and we're going to be breaking down all things health and wellness, mental health, as well as physical health. And Chad has just posted the upcoming parent and family orientation. So I cannot believe, to Alicia's comment earlier, we're already on July 1st tomorrow. It's this year is flying by, but that financing your education, I talked a little bit about some of those pieces earlier, but that'll be tomorrow from 4 to 5. And then Forecast from Flagstaff next Wednesday. And then if your student didn't attend the first one, the Student Involvement Expo, that's where they can learn about all the different clubs and organizations and actually visit with them. And so that's another piece that you're going to want to check out. And then 2 weeks from today, we'll be back with another parent and family chat.
Awesome. And I also want to mention that Spanish info session. If you know families or someone in your family that would benefit from that, certainly help spread the word for that. I know this time of year, a lot of times you've got real kind of personal questions to you or your student. And if it's, not one that we're covering kind of in this broader information and these themes that we're covering, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you navigate that. Admissions@nau.edu is a great starting point to ask that question that's specific to your student or your family. And we're here to help with that transition. So as always, thanks for taking the time for your student. And this is really an investment in them, I think, showing up here and helping get those questions answered. And hard to believe, like Annika said, it's July tomorrow, and then August, the students will be here. And we are super excited for that and a vibrant fall semester. So thanks for hanging out tonight, and we'll see you at another time. Take care. Go
Take
Jacks.
care.